and welcome to Finsweet Live Build Day. It's Friday and we are building live. That is what every Friday we are doing at 9 a.m. Eastern. That's right now. And because of last week's total success in Build Day and really positive comments around the technical content, we're bringing Alex back this week and next week and the week after and the week after until I don't know, but he's going to be here for a while because we're going to give more technical content to you. So, Alex, welcome, Finsweet Live Build Day. How are you doing?
Hey, I'm great. I'm super
Great.
excited, especially after seeing last Friday. It was super nice to see a lot of comments, a lot of people jumping in and wanting to learn technical for Webflow, which is something that blows my mind. It's that people want to learn technical stuff for Webflow. So super cool. I'm super excited.
Totally. We had a lot of positive comments during the stream time, and then a lot of comments after the stream time. People that said, I
Yeah.
missed the live, but I watched it, and this is exactly what I was looking for. This is the type of content I really wanted. So that's what we're doing. We're listening to you, and we're going to give you more of this content. So today we're talking about deploying code for Webflow. This is somewhat of a part two of last week. You don't have to have
Yes.
seen last week to see today. You can watch this completely on its own. But if you're interested in technical, definitely go to last week's episode where we talk about the tools we use. And we kind of stopped around the deploy stage. So that's what we're talking about today. And Alex is going to walk us through some really nice options and really give us an idea of the options we have for deploying code for Webflow. So, before we get into it, let's say hello to everybody in the audience. Christian Castilla, hello. Excited, thank you. We have David. Oh, and he's saying yes to the necessary meeting. Great. Pablo Cortez, hello. Penny, not quite caught up from last week yet. Thank goodness for recordings. Yeah, if you're new to technical, you may have to watch these videos a few times, and that's okay. And maybe after the second or third or even fourth time, you say, wow, now I really understand this. So that's fine, Penny. That's great. I'm glad you're back here. Continue learning. Andres, hello. How are you? Magdalena, hello. Kai, it is a beautiful day. Yes, Penny, more Alex. Belmont, looking forward to this. After last week's, I made sure I had time for this week's. Nice.
Nice.
Okay, so we're starting to get a little bit of a following here. I like that. David, hello, hello. Marus, hello. Magdalena. Okay, let's get into this. So let's jump right into it. We have 1 hour today, and we're going to go over as much content as we can. So now, Alex, please take it away. Let's go over the topics for today.
I think that can we start by giving just some context to people, like 3 minutes summary of what happened last week, which led us to this stream today. So last week we went through the developer starter template that we use in Finsweet for doing everything from developing a super simple project to a very complex project, going from scratch to deploying the final solution. We kind of went through it, but we stopped at the middle when we had to discuss about deployment options. But just as a summary, if you want to use our template and you check out the previous stream, you will see that we ask for, well, we tell you a bunch of software that you can use to code properly like we do, and how to use that software. And I would like to mention one thing that we forgot, because we ended the stream and it was like, oh, I forgot to tell people to install Node.js. But still, the summary is that there's this repository here that you can clone, that you can use as a template for your own repositories. We explain how to manage the code in in GitHub and the benefits for it. We explain how to manage GitHub in a no codey way by using the GitHub desktop application, which it's very simple to use. We explain how do we code using VS Code, which is the software. And we went through a little bit of the setup of the developer starter. One thing that I missed to explain was that in order to make sure that everything works properly, you need to install Node.js in your computer. So if you kind of try to follow up the tutorial last week and you got stuck just at the beginning trying to install pnpm from npm, you probably got already an error, because npm, it's a package manager that comes included in Node.js. Node.js it's some software that you need to have in your computer if you want to run everything. So just pointing that out, if you want to follow everything, make sure that you install Node.js in your computer. And just finishing the summary, what we discussed was the tools that are included in the template. So we explained about TypeScript, pretty areas, lane. I don't think if we explained Playroute. I think that today it's the best day to do. We explained about ESBuild for compiling the code, and then we explained a little bit on how to start deploying that code, how to host that code to bring it up, to bring it in a Webflow project like we did in here. We took a Jsdeliver URL and we pulled it from GitHub, but we'll explain about this again today. So all this software, websites, everything, all these resources that I just mentioned, you will have them in the comments. I think that Joe already shared some stuff, but also in the video comments, you will see all of these. Developer Starter, the Node.js, the Visual Studio Code, GitHub Desktop, Jsdeliver, all of this, it's in the comments. So I think that we're good now. I think that we made a good summary. Anybody that followed us the past week should be good to go. If you didn't see the stream and you're interested, just go ahead and watch it. After this one, we would like to have you here hanging around with us. But okay, so now today we've prepared the deploying options because we have a bunch of them, and they go from less complex to a little bit more complex, and all of them, they have some pros and cons, and I wanted to discuss about them. The plain code, let's just explain that. The plain code, basically just saying how to take the code that you just wrote and put it in your Webflow site. That's it. The main reason why we're doing all of this is because we don't want to work directly in Webflow. We don't want to be in the site settings, trying to type some code here where we don't have IntelliSense, we have character limitations. Every time that we change something, we need to publish the site. There's a lot of downsides of working directly in Webflow. That's a reason. Instead, we're picking this code with just hosting. Well, we're managing entirely outside from GitHub and coding using VS Code. And now we're discussing how to take that code and bring it back into Webflow. So that's it. Joe, any questions so far? Did I do a good summary?
Great summary. Let's continue to this really
Cool.
nice tree here.
Okay, cool. Well, I did some homework. I wanted to make it as visual as possible. We are going to mention 3 different ways of hosting your code, bringing the code into a Webflow project. But these are not the only 3 ways. There's probably somebody thinking, oh, but you could do it that way. We're just focusing on these ones because I think they are the most common ones that you could do nowadays. And well, let's just mention them. The GitHub one, it's the one that we did last week. And as I explained, we made so we wrote a little bit of code. We made a commit to GitHub. We sent that code to GitHub, and then we already used it with Jsdeliver to bring it in. But this can be improved a little bit. So let's start again explaining it, and let's see how we can improve it a little bit. But basically, you can think of deploying the code from GitHub as just bringing in directly from GitHub. A set, we have all the code in VS Code, and every time that we have something new that something that we're good with it, we make a commit and we push it to GitHub. So last week, what we did was actually write this piece of code, which was basically just saying hello to Joe. It was just outputting a console log. It's waiting for Webflow to be loaded, and it's just saying, hello, Joe. And this code, we send it to GitHub. Actually, I have here change. I don't want to show you this, but if we check the commit history, and let me just go to the repository that we're working on, this is a clone that I did from the original template. So last week we created this clone that's called starter demo. And in here, if we check the history, we will see that all of this in here was from last week. It explains exactly what we did. And it just includes, you know, saying hi to Joe. We have all this code already in GitHub. Now we want to take this code and bring it into Webflow. The first thing that I mentioned that you could do, but it's not recommended at all, is that directly from a GitHub repository, you just take the raw URL to a file. So let's imagine that I have the bundle files, the index.js, and I just pick this raw URL in here. So it's basically just pointing me to a URL that GitHub provides with the raw file, just the code itself, no, nothing else. But this has a problem, and it's that it's highly cached, which means that GitHub, every time that you change this file, this URL will not update itself. You will not be able to keep pushing new code and keep deploying it and consuming it from Webflow, because all this code will stick together. I think that it's up to 1 week or 1 month, probably. It's super cached. You don't want to do this. And also, I think that there are some rate limits here. If you read a lot of this, GitHub is probably going to complain to you. So you don't want to do this. Instead, we already shared a very cool product that's actually free for everyone, that it's called Jsdeliver. And don't get me wrong, there are actually similar projects to this. There, when it's called Jsdeliver, there's Unpackage, there's one from Cloudflare, there is something. I think there was something from AWS also, but there are a bunch of projects like this, which is just a CDN that takes your files, that caches it on a global network, and then serves it to your users. And this way, we can bring the code through GitHub, through a CDN that's prepared for production, and also making sure that if we've had some updates, we can do versioning control. So let's go through that. I don't know if I'm going super fast, by the way. So please, Joe, stop me if you think that I'm rushing. But
No,
I think we're
yeah,
good to
please
go.
continue. Yeah, totally.
Cool. Okay. So this approach has a bunch of pros in one con. And I think that the first thing that you should notice is that this approach, it's only for public repositories. This means is that if you're coding something for a client and it has something sensitive in it, or the client directly doesn't want to have that repository is public, or you don't want others to see what you're working on, whatever reason, then this solution is not for you. This solution is just great if you're just doing something that can be public, then anybody can jump into the code base and can pick on it. Um, that would be the main reason. But the pros of this, it's that it's super simple to set up. It's completely free. You don't need to pay for anything. You don't need to pay for hosting. You don't need to pay for egress data. Usually, when you use a platform, they charge you for every request. So every time that you send some data, you need to pay for that. Nothing like that. You can control the versions, and we'll talk about that in a second. But there's versioning control, and also you can control what's exactly being released to the user, because not all the time you want some code to be served to the user. Sometimes you have something that it's a work in progress, and you don't want to ship that. You just want to have to keep working in the repository, and once you decide that everything is ready to be shipped, you can release that. So with GitHub, with this approach, you can do everything, all of this. Okay, so I think that we can just do
Yeah,
a demo.
yes, I was going to say, going through this again, if you could zoom in. when speaking
Yep.
about it. Yeah, nice.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, let's go right into the demo. And this is a good question from Corey. Maybe we answer this now, maybe we answer it later, but I want to bring it up in case it can be worked in naturally. Corey Moen,
Mhm.
really talented Webflow developer working at Webflow. Thanks for being here. He asks, how do you get around Jsdeliver's cache times when needing to push a change out by a certain day or time without changing the
Yep.
version or link in Webflow?
Yep. You have two options for that, Corey. The first option would be specifying a specific version of the code, and I was about to explain that in a second. And the second one, there's actually an API in Jsdeliver for purging the cache. If we have some time later, maybe we can show it, but it's on the request. You need to ask to Jsdeliver to give you access to it. It's free. You don't need to pay for anything, but you need to ask for it. Personally, I asked for it for Finsweet. We do use that Purge API, and they gave us access. Like it just took a couple of days. I just sent an email. I just explained what are our projects, and they just gave us access. So you have those two options. But I think that the best option, it's not purging cache. It's actually using versioning control for the files that you're serving. Let's show that to the people. It will be easier if we just show it. If we go to Jsdeliver and we go to the GitHub section, you will see here that we have a kind of a link template, a URL structure that we just need to populate with our own data. So in this case, let me close everything that it's not related for now, like that. I'll just keep this. We need to pick this URL and fill it with our data. So let's do it. We have our own repository already. If you don't know where this came from, please watch the previous stream where we created this repo from scratch. But we do have already this repository with all the files already included, and specifically the test file that contains the production code. So after building the code, we have this production ready code. It's just a file that is this specific file, the one that we want to serve. So we're just going to pick this URL and we're going to fill it with our data. Let's do it together here. Actually, I did it already last week, but I'll just remove it for the sake of the demo. We'll do it again. So first we want to put a script source. So we'll just do this. Let me close the tag, script like that. And we'll put defer. Okay, so we have this URL in here. Oops. This URL in here, and we want to fill this with our data. So we just need to follow this. It's just saying cdn, jsdeliver.net, GitHub, nothing else here. The user is going to be our user. In our case, our user is Finsweet. You can get it either from the base of the repo here, or you can get it from the URL. This is the user. So you pick it and you put it here. Then you want to fill the repo name. The repo name, it's the next thing that you can see here at top. It just, in our case, it's called starter demo. You can also fetch it from the URL. You can just get it from up here. So we'll put this in here. And now here comes the interesting part, version. The reason why versioning control is so powerful, it's because you can choose at all times what this URL it's loading. But first, I think that we need to make a quick dive into Semver, semantic versioning control. This is something that you want to use when you're building code. If you've probably seen any software, anything, whatever you've used, and you check the information about the software, you probably recall seeing something like version v1.5.2, something like that, right? If you're non-technical, even then, you've probably seen this kind of nomenclature, naming convention. This naming convention, it's called Semver. And let me just do a quick Google like this, Semver, like this. I don't know if you can see it. But this is just a standard of giving versions to your code, to a piece of software. It could be anything. In our case, it's just some JavaScript code, but it could be anything. And this has a reason why there are 3 numbers in here. You can see that usually when you see the version of something, you see version 1 point whatever. Every single number up here, and let me just put it here because I think it's, how about now? Better, right? Every single number here has a meaning. The first number means a major version. Means that if this number changes, something in the code that it's not compatible with the previous version has changed. For example, if there's an API and something like an endpoint changed from an API, or a method changed from an API, or a feature from a product that previously was included in the product, but now it is not included, or perhaps the feature it's still included, but now it's being used differently, whatever. This means that it has a breaking change. So in the case of my code, it could be something like I completely changed my code, and if somebody is consuming that for any other purpose, they could potentially have issues when updating to this version. The second number is the minor version, and this means that somebody has been included, but it's non-breaking. This could be a new feature, something that has been improved, but does not affect whatever was included already in the past in the solution, in the code. Usually it's for new features that are non-breaking. And the last one, it's a patch, which means that something was fixed. The last day's code that I had with Joe, it had a bug, and instead of canceling log hey Joe, it was canceling log hey Jonas, whatever. And there was an issue, and I fixed that. When I push this is a patch because I'm fixing my code. So this December, this naming convention, it's the one that Jsdeliver uses here with the name. And not only that, but also it's very powerful because, let's jump up here and let me do a little bit more zoom until Webflow complains. When you specify the version, you can either put a very specific version. So I could just say, I want the version 1.0.1. And this will give me the version 1.0.1. But maybe I want to have any version that it's 1.0 point whatever. Could be 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.5, whatever. I just need to put 1.0. And this is including now everything under 1.0. Or I could just say 1. And this now will include everything 1.1.5, 1.5 point whatever. It's just going to include everything. And this one is very powerful, especially when you have solutions like attributes, where you have user base that it's consuming your scripts, and you want everyone to have the latest version of whatever you've done. Latest version that it's non-breaking, which means that, for example, in attributes, if we change something that requires you updating the Webflow project, you would not be getting that update because it would not be 1, it would be 2 or 3 or 4, whatever. In that case, the user is safe getting always the latest code, but only the code that is non-breaking. So that's very important. So answering back to Corey, you can always have whatever version you want by specifying a version here. If you just published a new release and you want to get that release right now without any caching, you can just specify the version and you'll get it directly. No waiting, no caching. If you do want to keep a URL like this and you still want to get the latest version, then you need to purge the cache. And then you would have to go and check the cache purging options for Jsdeliver. But that's not the case. We're not diving into this today. So how we can do this?
Can I ask a question about this?
Yep.
So just to be clear, this is what we use in attributes to make sure that we can give you updates to each solution without touching the code in Webflow. So if something happens with CMS Nest, we could actually make that update and send it to your site without you updating anything in Webflow. It's a beautiful thing. This is the versioning control part of this. And I really like how Alex brought up the kind of those three placeholders of the version: the major, the minor, and the patch. So, Alex, is it true that when you're writing code, you can actually work with these numbers to make sure that you're getting the most recent code without updating Webflow every single time? Because that's a big problem that people have, that they want to kind of write the code, deploy it to Webflow, and not really have to update it too much.
Yes. Well, that's why Corey was asking. You can do it with this approach. The only thing is that if you don't want to touch at all this script, you don't want to even open the Webflow project. This means that you will have to import the code by using an alias. So instead of saying a specific version like this, which you will have to update whenever you deploy new code, because will be no longer 1.0.5, it could be 1.0.6. So you need to come here and change it in the script. If you have it like this, then there's going to be some caching. If you don't mind about the caching, because the caching for Jsdeliver is 1 week, you can just leave it. If you do mind about the caching, then you should either purge the cache or keep watching this stream, because it will explain another approach for deploying the code that doesn't involve any caching for this. So yeah, that's the summary. I see a bunch of questions. I don't know if we should answer them now or wait until later. I think that let's finish just showing how to do this in GitHub.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's do some coding. Let's just keep with the previous code that we had here. Let's show how we can do this. We were saying hi to Joe. How about we change the background color of the body to red, whatever, because we think it's fancy. We'll just say document body style, and it's gonna be the background color. Or do you prefer any other color, Joe? I
Let's
think
go
red is
red.
pretty ugly. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So we now have new code that is doing this. Remember, if you want to check this in local environment while developing, we explained how to do this in the previous stream. In the previous stream, we explained how to not have to deploy the code every single time when you're just developing, but instead just keep refreshing the screen and you always get the latest code. But that's on the previous stream. On this time, we want to deploy this code. So what we'll do, I'll keep using GitHub Desktop. If you're good with that, it's okay. There's people who prefer to just use the terminal. There's people who prefer to use the source control extension in VS Code. In this case, we'll do it here in GitHub Desktop. We have this code, and we'll just make a commit. We'll say turn the background color to red. We'll have this commit. And not only that, but also we'll make a release. Because in the case of GitHub, you want to make a release of something to ship it. If you're using GitHub Desktop, you can do it directly from here, but I also show you how you can do it in the Webflow side. I could just take my commit that I just did, and I'll say that I want to create a new tag in here. And this tag, it's going to be 1.0, not actually because it's a new feature, because we've added the background change. We'll say 1.1.0. We'll create this tag and we'll push this to GitHub. And now if we check the repository, you will see that we have a new release. Oh, actually, sorry, that's a tag. That's not a release. You need to release that. We have the tag, sorry about that. And now we want to create a release from this tag. So we'll say, from this tag, we'll say, whatever, edit fancy background colors, whatever. In this case, you're explaining exactly what you're including in this change. So if you had some users, depending on this code, they could go ahead and check whatever has changed. Okay, cool. Now we have a release. So this means that we can come here and say, let's start by saying 1.1.0. Let's put the exact version. Let's save the code. Let's publish this. And hopefully it does not work. Okay, let's debug. So we got a 404 here. Just 1 second. Debugging is always you risk having that. Okay, so we didn't get. Oh, sorry. We need to specify the actual file. Sorry, I forgot about that. We're trying to fetch from a file in here, but actually the file it's in dist and it's in index.js. And another thing that I forgot, it's to build the code. I forgot a lot of stuff. So let's do it again. Sorry about that. We got the code. And now in the terminal, we want to build that code. So we'll say pm build. Now that we got this code, we'll just make a new commit. So we'll say included the build files like that. And we'll just make a new tag. Whoops. Why don't see? I don't see. Okay, let's do it from GitHub. And in here, let's go to releases. We will create a new tag. Let's do it manually. I think that we can actually create it just in a release. Yeah, we can create a new tag from here. So let's just create a new tag from here. Let's just say 1.1.1 like that. And this will mean that fixed missing files like that. I'll just publish this. Okay, so let's just say 1.1.1, and this file, it's going to be this index.js. If you're confused about this, let's recap again. We have this folder, we have index.js. This one, it's the output of building the code. So this is what we're pointing here. This is what we want to load from GitHub. So in this case, we can just publish again, and sorry about that. I know that. Okay, cool. Okay, now it works. So we got this very specific version. You could see now, Corey, that we don't have any caching issues because I put the specific version that I want to load. I'm seeing a question, why the folder is called this? It's just a convention. It just, you could call it whatever. If you use the template that we created, this is how we named it. If you're curious about it, you can check the build settings, and you will see that the build directory is this. But this is just because we decided it to be like that. It's just a convention. But you could have it like public build output, whatever. You could even not have a folder. You could just put it in the repo, in the root directory. It's fine, whatever. So now, instead of loading from 1.1.1, because we need to change it every single time, we could just have it as 1 like that, and it would still work. And now every time that we created a new release, we would load everything. If we waited for the cache, or if we purge the cache, it could be automatic. So in this case, again, everything is working fine, and now I could just keep coding and releasing stuff. I think that
Question.
I explained everything, but yeah, let's go through questions.
So how long would I expect for this cache to be reset? Like, let's say we're
1
working
week.
in attributes 1 week. So if we need to release an update for attributes to everybody immediately, you're going to purge the cache.
Yep, we do
Okay.
purge the cache.
Yes.
In our case, it makes sense because the way that our users are consuming everything, we want to have this version in control. It's very important for us. And there's actually a reason also for this version in control that you will see, which is a downside when you don't have it when we go to the next version, to the next option, of the plugin. So in this case, yeah, we do have this caching. This cache is actually good because this means that everyone loads the code super fast. because the CDN it's caching everything. But yeah, purging the cache is just something that we need to do if we want to push something that we are a little bit in a hurry, especially when there's a bug. When there's
Yeah,
something that users are complaining, like, hey, something broke, and now we have 2,000 sites that are being broken, that we do want to purge the cache because we want to
of
be quick
course.
about that. But
Of
it's not
course.
usually the case. It's not usually the case for that. Um, okay. I think that we can answer a bunch of questions if there's something, and then we can jump to the next option, and we'll see if we have enough time to go to the version that we do in Finsweet, which is the most complex one. Um, because I saw a couple questions before. I saw a question that I wanted to address, but somebody I lost it. Somebody asking that they could not install PMPM. If you could not install PMPM, that's probably because you don't have Node.js installed in your machine. So make sure that you have Node.js installed. This is something that I forgot to mention in the previous stream. I'm sorry about that. Um, Hopefully, when you have that, you should be able to install PMPM because it's very simple. Uh, I see a question in
Oh,
a
can
language that
we
I don't understand.
can we just
Go ahead.
follow up on a response to the PMPM?
Yeah.
So that was Connor, and
Yep.
Alex Shaffy had suggested a solution to this, and Connor is getting ZSH command not found. So is this not installing Node? Is this what you would get by not having Node installed?
Probably because then
Okay.
the terminal it's not recognizing the npm command, which means
Okay.
that you don't have npm installed in your machine. So probably
Okay.
when you have npm installed, npm is included in Node.js. Then when running npm install
Mm,
pmpm, you will be
I see.
able to do it.
I see.
Also, one thing that I regret a little bit of explaining last week is that we use pmpm but not explaining why, because actually everything that we're explaining right now could be fully done with just npm. Pmpm is just a good to have, but it's not a requirement. PNPM is just because it's a little bit more performant when managing packages. I don't want to dive into that because it's for completely entire stream. But if you don't want to install PNPM, just don't do it. And every time that you see that you need to type something with PNPM, just type npm, and that's it. So PNPM it works exactly as npm, but it has the p at the start, and it's just a different package manager that it's more performant. But it's actually at the end of the day, it's doing the same job. It's doing the same thing. So if you're confused about that, for example, here this line, you would write npm instead of pnpm, but that's it. It's the same thing. I think that we
Nice.
could plan another stream related to packages, package managers,
Hmm.
everything related to coding with packages, because
Yes.
it's a whole new topic. Um, is there any other question before we move on?
Let's continue. Let's make sure that we hit the static hosting, and then after that, we'll go and hit any questions that are remaining.
Okay, yeah, that works. Um, this one it's actually the simplest one of setting up, and it's so simple that I'll do it just right now. Static hosting, it's basically just an option for deploying the code on a platform that offers this static hosting. I already included a bunch of options here: Netlify, Cloudflare Pages, Vercel. There are more of them. Sorry, it's just a platform that allows you to take some code and pick those files and put them on a CDN directly. There's usually they offer like this middle step of building the code also for you, but we don't need to dive into that. But they do offer this. What's going to happen is that instead of relying on a system with versioning control where we create new releases and then we pull it from GitHub using Jsdeliver, in this case, we'll just host everything on a platform, and we'll just use the hosted website, the hosted domain for that specific code. And I'll show you now. It's very simple. We'll use Vercel in our case, but I can tell you that it's all these three platforms are very simple to use, and they are free until a certain point. We'll get to that in a second, because there are a bunch of pros, but there are some cons about these platforms. So let's do it. Let me just clear up a little bit. I already logged in Vercel. I have my own personal account for this. It's just for a demo. Logging into Vercel is just so simple. I do recommend that you log in with GitHub. So you can just log in with Gmail, with, I think that Facebook, no, well, GitHub. And if you log in with GitHub, you will have everything already set up for connecting Vercel to GitHub. If not, it's still simple to do. But anyways, that's it. Create a new project. Import a repository. So I'll just, you can see here that it already reads from my GitHub. So it knows my repositories here. So I'll just take the starter demo. It asks me to create a team. So I'll just do cool Alex. Oh, whatever. No presets at all. Root directory, let's say we want to have dist, because our files are being built in the dist folder. You can see why we have this convention, because usually it's recognized by everyone who's developing. So we'll say that everything is on the dist folder. We'll say that for building, we do use npm. Probably Vercel will probably not have pm. So we'll say npm run build, like that. Oh no, we do have. They do have pm. So let's do it. pm build output directory. It's the this folder, but I think that, okay, some confusion. The root directory was fine. The output directory, it's this folder, like that. Just say with me. And then for building, we'll say pm install. Sorry, pm install. Why is this asking me all of this? It's because if you recall what I did before, when deploying to GitHub, I did not have an automated system for taking my not compiled code, the TypeScript code, and preparing it for production. But in this case, this Vercel or any platform, Netlify and Cloudflare pages is going to do the same. Every time that we make a commit to GitHub, it's going to take the code, it's going to install all the dependencies, it's going to build the code, and then it's going to host the output that it's in this folder, and host that in the domain. So let's try it. So just deploy, and hopefully that will work. I have not tested it. Let's see.
We have a good comment
building.
from Kiss Kellett. Got a rogue L in the install text. So maybe that's going to fail. Or maybe not.
Oh, probably. Yeah. Change. Yep. Thank you. Install. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, let's do it again. So now what's happening is Vercel is reading my GitHub repository. It's installing all the dependencies. It's building my code, and it's deploying it to a domain. I have not set up a custom domain, so right now it's just random domain that Vercel will assign to me. But I can then also assign whatever domain. I think it's paid, by the way, but you can do it. Okay, let's wait. I don't know if it will take a lot. I think not. Oh, because it's queued. Okay, so I think that let's go to the pros and cons while it's thinking. So the process is very similar, but the platform is doing most of the work for you. Previously, in this approach, we had to do a little bit of manual work, which can be automated, by the way. And I'll explain in the last option. I don't know if we'll have time for that, but if we do, I'll explain it. Joey's already saying no. um, it's doing all the work of building the code and hosting it, and then it's serving that code in a domain. The pros of this approach is that it's very simple to set up. You already saw it. Just a bunch of commands connected to GitHub, and now every single time that I push some code to master, to the master branch, it's gonna detect that and it's gonna trigger this entire workflow again to install the dependencies, build the code, and deploy it to the platform. But there are some cons to this approach, and especially you need to assess them if you're doing this for a client. Because the first thing, there is no versioning control. There is versioning control in GitHub. You can have branches and you can keep working on different branches, but at the moment that you pick some code and you put it in master, you send that code into master, it's gonna trigger the deployment. So this means that you could potentially slip things that you don't want to have into production. You need to have a full system to make sure that every single time that you commit to master, it's the final version. It's the version that you want everyone to get. It's harder to delegate to clients if because the ownership of the code. The reason is because what I just did, you need the client to do it. You need you need to give them access to your GitHub. You need the client to connect to your GitHub to prepare everything and to have that platform set up on their own. Because if you don't do that, then you're hosting the code for your client, which means that you're gonna eat up all the costs about hosting the code of a client. That usually it's very cheap for these kind of platforms, especially when deploying code. But if you have a lot of clients, if you have a lot of build processes, it's gonna cost you money. And usually that's not something that you want to take. You want the client for the client to take. It's usually that mix of not wanting to pay for this and also the client usually wanting to have ownership of the code. So it's a mix of different stuff that you need to be aware of. Um, I think that that's basically it. I think the most important one is that you don't have versioning control. You already saw how powerful it is, the versioning control, especially when deploying things for like a library, something like that. But yeah, that's an option. Let's see actually
Can
if it.
oh oh nice.
No, it
Ooh,
has finished.
congratulations.
We
Nice.
had some confetti. It's
There
cool.
we go.
Yep, cool. So we
So
got our code. Go ahead.
and now
Tell me.
now we have a link to this that we can add to our Webflow project.
Yep, this one,
Great.
the URL.
Excellent.
Because
Cool.
yep, in this case, we're not relying on a platform like Jsdeliver to act as the CDN. Vercel or Netlify or Cloudflare, whatever platform you're using, it's providing me a domain, subdomain in this case, that contains my code. In this case,
Mhm.
I could just say here, and I could replace this with this. Um, you might see that there's just one domain, and the reason is because we just have one file that it's called index.js, but you could have multiple files. In this case, you would not write the domain. You would write something like domain slash index.js. In this case, it will probably work still, but if you had other files like home.js or team.js, I mean, because you probably want to have different scripts for different pages. You don't want to have all your JavaScript bundled together for the entire project,
Sure.
unless it's something that should be running globally. So yeah, we have a URL, a domain, subdomain on the Vercel app in this case, and we can just save it. Let's be more specific and just say index.js. Publish this. And now we don't need to worry about caching. That's a good thing about the platform. And I forgot about it. Not worrying about caching. This is very important.
Nice.
Because now every single time, let's refresh. Yep, still works. That's cool.
Great.
Every single time that now I push something to master, this is gonna be updated. So this is a good option for people who's working on personal stuff or with clients and they don't mind about the issues that I mentioned about ownership, version control, etc.
Hmm.
Did you have a question?
I do. Well, I'd like you to go to the Miro board, please,
Yep.
and just leave the screen up a little bit over to the left so we can see the first two, the GitHub option and the static hosting. And can you go to the pros and cons?
Yep.
All right. Let's just leave this open. Everybody listening, everybody here, please ask questions about these. This is now the time for questions. We have 10 minutes left. So if you have a question on should I be more on the Vercel and Cloudflare pages side using another product, or more on the Jsdeliver side in GitHub. So let's leave this for people to look at. I really want you to look at Connor's error. So he now has a new error. I would really love for him to be set up with this, and maybe you can
Okay.
help with this. So please check out that.
I installed Node and that seemed to work, but now I'm getting another error that's telling me that permissions were denied for the folder that I installed PMPM on. Did you install PMPM globally? So when you install PMPM, so when you install any package, you can install it by just on the folder that you are, or you can install it globally. If you did install globally, then I need to do what everyone who's developing needs to do. I need to go to Google and ask for it because I don't have an answer for that. I need to see exactly where this is missing. This is failing. And in this case, we see that Connor, it's permission denied. Make it there. Um, I'll ask the obvious question. Connor, have you tried to Google this? Let's see. Because I'm literally gonna Google it myself. Sudo need to change ownership of the folder because you used. Nope. And by the way, Connor, can you tell me if you have a Mac, Windows, or Linux? Because that can change depending on the platform. Config global wasn't talking. Seeing a bunch of more comments.
Hmm.
I might not have an answer for now. Just be
Okay.
aware. Because debugging this kind of stuff, it's basically me going into Google and staring into a bunch of people having the same issue and trying to find out
Yeah.
about the solution. Um,
Okay. So let's move on to another question.
I would prefer that.
Look.
Can we?
Yeah.
Can we? Let me just say something. Anybody that's having issues installing PMPM, reach out to me in the community chat that we have. I would prefer that. Reach out to me. We can
Yeah.
make a group assessing why is this happening for everyone, and then we can just probably have just an explanation in the documentation once we figure out the solution. Although Brian is already saying add sudo to the front of the command, and Brian is probably right about that. So you could try it.
Nice.
Um,
Great.
so thank you, Brian. But if that does not work, please reach out to me. We can do a just a group chat, and we can try to figure out the solution, and then I'll put it in the documentation. That
Let's
worked.
bring up a
Yay! Thanks, Brian.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
Great. Brian, thank you.
nice.
Brian has been a long time JavaScript developer at Finsweet. Really, really great part of the team. So thank you, Brian. Appreciate that. And thank you, Alex Shaffy, also for coming in here trying to
Yep.
help through this issue. Let's bring up a comment from Wayne Rogers. This is an interesting one. Is there a way to switch between the local path and the hosted path in Webflow code automatically? As in, if
Yep.
publishing to the live site rather than changing the path manually.
Yep. Let's do it now because it's actually a cool trick. Let's just finish the stream with this cool trick.
Great.
Um, you can do this by using JavaScript, and let's understand why. So let's just do it here. Let me create an HTML file. just for now for testing. Let's create this. I'll put this in the Webflow project. So, and you can actually copy and paste this if you want to. So what we want to do is, instead of putting a script like we have in here, because this, what basically is going to happen is that when the page loads, the browser is going to recognize this script and it's just going to load it. So you're already late to change how is this being loaded. In our case, we don't want to have this script, so we will remove it, and instead we will put a little bit of JavaScript. And this JavaScript, what's going to happen is it's going to check for the URL, and it's going to decide then what script to load. And bear with me, we can do it in 3 minutes. Let's do it. So we'll see. We'll say it's staging. That's a variable, and we'll just pick the window location href. No, actually, it's say the origin, and we'll see if it includes the webflow.io. Basically, what's happening now is this line of code. It's checking the current URL, and it's seeing if the domain it's the webflow.io domain, or if not. If it's the webflow.io domain, you want to load from localhost. And if it's not, you want to load from the CDN. So that's what's going to happen. So we'll just create this new script. We'll create a new element that's going to be the script. And now we want to add the script source. And this script source, we want to add it depending on the domain that we are at. So in this case, we'll say if it's staging, we'll load it from, what was the URL? This one. And if it's not staging, we will load it from Vercel, like that. Basically that. And also, because we're doing it on the head, we want to add the differ option to true. But there's one potential problem that you could have with this. I won't dive into this, but just be aware that if you need this script to actually block the main thread, I don't know why you would want to do this, because usually you don't want to block the main thread while loading the scripts. But if you do want to block the main thread, even if you don't, even if you don't add the differ tag, it will not block the main thread, because this it's dynamically creating a new event in the event queue of the browser, of the JavaScript engine. Sorry, and then it's adding the script. It's a little bit more technical. I don't want to dive into that, but just be aware that it will not block the main thread. But in this case, we'll add the differ tag, and we'll just append this. So we'll say document.head append the script. Shall we try it? Let's try it. Just take a screenshot, copy this if you want to. We can already come here and we'll comment out this like that. We'll save. Let's see what happens.
Wow.
And
Look how clean that code is. I love it.
We need
Really
to we need to run the local host because I want to show this. So we'll do it again. And let's check the network. Now that we are on the webflow.io, it's loading from localhost like that. But if we were not in the webflow.io, actually I cannot show you because I don't have a custom domain. It would load it from Vercel. And this is just with these lines of code. We're checking the domain and we're creating the script tag. We're appending the source based on the environment, and then we're appending that to the head. That's it. Actually, we could do this a little bit better if we wanted to. And script, insert the JSON element after end. Bear with me. So now what I've done instead is I said, instead of appending it at the end of the head, we are appending this right after this script. Because maybe you have different order, but that's it. It just that I hope that everyone
Nice.
could follow that. Yeah,
Yeah. And in time. Great job.
in time.
Okay.
Cool.
So
Nice.
this is the end of the hour, and a whole bunch of people came in towards the end. If you missed the beginning, go ahead, check out last week's, check out this episode. We go through a lot of great content about deploying your code for Webflow. We will be back next Friday with a new topic, and we're going to go into the Webflow JS file. Alex will be picking apart this Webflow JS file, the file that's served with every Webflow project, and we're going to understand it better, which is really valuable for us. Oh,
Was it,
John A.,
Joe?
what's up?
Hey, John.
Nice.
Joe, wasn't it planned to be the JavaScript framework dive in using JavaScript frameworks in Webflow, or was I confused? The
Um,
next topic.
well, we can really do whatever we want. Just know
Yeah.
that
Oh,
Alex is going to
good.
be back next Friday with some really epic content that's really technical focused. So, thank you everybody for being here live. If you want to be more technical, if you want to do more things in Webflow, show up to these live events on Friday. And you can see that when you ask questions, we are going to help you. We walked Connor through this setup, which is epic. So by the time the this episode ends, hopefully you're getting a lot of really valuable information. So we have next Tuesday, Finsweet Day, 12 Eastern. We're talking about why we offer Webflow products for free. Finsweet is a big supplier of really cool things you can do with your Webflow site. And we're going to talk about why we do this for free and why it's a marketing opportunity for us. Then on next Thursday, we have Community Day with Ben Silinsky. And that's going to be a really interesting one. Up and coming Webflow developer, really talented. We're going to hear what he has to say. And then the next Friday, we are back with Alex. Definitely be here at 9 a.m. Eastern. Alex, thank you so much for your time. And thank you for teaching everybody today. So now, please give your final thanks and goodbye to the audience here.
Thanks and goodbye. No, thank you
That's
for real. Thank you everyone for being here. I do really appreciate it. I'm super happy for being able to share this. So thank you for staying an entire hour with us. Super nice to see folks just staying from the beginning until the end. There's one person who's asking, wait, what happened with the third option? The most complex option. That option, we basically did not have enough time. But the documentation of the developer starter template that we use has everything related to the third option. So if you're really interested in deploying the code exactly like we do in Finsweet, just follow along the documentation, the written documentation in the template. And if you have questions, just feel free to reach out. I'll be happy to answer them.
excellent. Okay. I think that is the end of the episode. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend. Have a great rest of your day, and keep staying technical in Webflow.
Bye.